again. This is a special edition of 360, Invisible Chains, Sex, Work, and Slavery. It's one of the world's ugliest truths, a story so shameful it is frankly unforgivable. Slavery. If you think it no longer exists, you are wrong. Right now, tonight, the United Nations estimates there are more than 12 million people around the world bound by invisible chains. We're talking about women, children, men, who for all intents and purposes are modern-day slaves. Many in their own countries, others are far from home. Every year, according to the U.S. State Department, as many as 800,000 people are trafficked across international borders. 80% of them are women and girls, and most of them are forced to work as sex slaves. Others are sold to work in fields and sweatshops, even in private homes here in America. We realize the numbers are huge and they can be hard to absorb, so tonight we're going to try to put faces on the numbers and the misery behind them. From Cambodia to California, Uganda to Atlanta, you'll see and you'll hear what it means to be a modern-day slave. Here's
in northern Uganda.
The sugarcane fields of the Dominican Republic. It is backbreaking work, just dollars a day. It's the kind of work that ages grown men. The question is, how many of the workers are children? Here's CNN's Joe Johns.
It's very early in the Dominican Republic. There in the pre-dawn shadows, you see men with machetes and water jugs. They're going to work at one of the hardest jobs in the world. They cut sugar cane, the same way it's cut in other parts of the Caribbean. It looks like a scene from slavery in the United States more than 140 years ago. The overseers on horseback, some are armed, the cane piled high. Much of the sugar ultimately shipped to the United States. What we found here was not slavery. Instead, we found people who are enslaved by their circumstances. Most are Haitians who've crossed the border into the Dominican Republic to work. They have no rights. They live in squalor. Many earn just enough to eat if they're lucky. Look at this. It's called a bate, a shanty settlement. Hard to believe, but this man is only in his 50s. He worked in the cane fields for nearly 40 years. His shack is filthy. He hasn't eaten in 4 days. With no work in Haiti, he came here as a teenager, and now he's sick and alone, on crutches and living on handouts from people who can't afford to give them. We found this man cutting cane on a Sunday. With 5 children back in Haiti to feed, he worked 7 days a week. We also met children. They tell us they started in the cane fields at age 7. For less than a penny an hour, they plant rows of cane shoots 100 yards long. They were happy to have the work.
How much do you get paid?
3 pesos.
How long does it take to do that work?
Como 3 horas.
In a day, a fast cane cutter like this man can cut up to 2 tons, earning up to 250 pesos. That's about $8. But because they're paid by the ton, the old or slow can starve. So why do they come here? Simple. For all the hardship, it's still better than Haiti, where the minimum daily wage for agricultural workers is about $3, and unemployment is well above 50%. Many of the vast cane fields here are owned by the wealthy Vicini family. On our visit, a U.S. congressional delegation worried about human rights also arrived, so the Vicinis opened up. For us, it was an opportunity for keeping them honest.
The conditions here are very tough, though, because this is the lowest rung of the economic ladder, is it not, for the people who work in the fields?
I wouldn't say that.
No? They don't make much money.
They make 150 pesos, 105 pesos a month. I mean, for a ton. Can I?
When we put the question of slave labor directly to one of the Vicini's top lieutenants, he laughed it off.
Joe, it is a ridiculous question.
He told us to ask the people themselves, so we did.
Is this like slavery?
Human rights advocates introduced us to workers who gave us the unofficial version.
He said, yes, it's worse than slavery.
And if this shocks you, perhaps the biggest shock of all is that it's much better now than in the recent past. And yet, it could still get worse. The company is moving to replace the oxen and the children and the strong men with machines. So as awful as this may be, the people here say at least now they have jobs that at least pay a little. Joe Johns, CNN, the Dominican Republic.
Well, the invisible chains of slavery are vast, but there are people working around the world to break them. Here's how you can help. Just go to our blog, cnn.com/360blog, for a list of organizations, including some we mentioned in this special hour report.